Canada once again in turmoil because Trump cut off tariff talks, all because of a television ad. Meantime, both Trump and the Canadian Prime Minister are in Asia, with Trump planning several stops to continue his trade talks with one everyone has their eyes on, which is a deal with China. So here to discuss all of this is Lisa Daftari with the Foreign Desk, joining me from Los Angeles. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Yes. Okay. So, Lisa, something interesting in the minds of Canadians are the trade talks that have been now terminated between Canada and the United States. President Trump is upset with an ad that the province of Ontario released in the U.S. using the words of former President Ronald Reagan, warning about the dangers of tariffs. And the ad was airing in the U.S. It was marketed towards Americans and was taken from a radio address that Reagan gave back in 1987. So, Lisa, how long do you think Trump will stay upset about this? Ontario Premier Doug Ford did take the ad off the air, but I guess apparently not quickly enough in Trump's eyes.
Yes, so he didn't call it an ad, he called it a fake ad, very sensitive to disinformation campaigns launched by adversaries, in this case, a friend that is in, talks with the U.S. So, Trump saw this as, an escalation of sorts. He was upset about it. Look, in the long run, do I think Canada and the United States will stay mad at each other like two feuding high school buddies? No, I think they will eventually work things out. I actually think Trump is going to even work things out with China. It's just that's who he is, but he also wants his terms met and no funny business. I think he was upset that this ad went out, in opposition to the tone of the conversation that he is trying to set with the Canadian government. So, regardless, I do think this will work itself out. But in the meantime, we need to let Donald Trump cool off. We need, the Canadian government to now come to their senses that we will all work together to be hopefully prosperous.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the Canadian government. It's literally one province in Canada, which, up until that point, it seemed like Canada and the U.S. were making some progress with Trump and Mark Carney having that lighthearted and even playful banter while they were in Egypt for the ceasefire signing between Gaza and Israel. So did Doug Ford, who's the Premier of Ontario, completely derail any progress that the relationship may have been making? A lot of people calling it a Trump temper tantrum.
Well, no, listen, you can make the same comparison here in the United States with a governor like Gavin Newsom here in California, right? So does he calls him out, obviously. It doesn't mean that California will, separate from the nation. It doesn't mean, but he does call him out, and he doesn't want that kind of anti-American rhetoric out there. He doesn't believe that Gavin Newsom operates within the values that Donald Trump wants to set for the nation. So he does call him out. So this is, Donald Trump calling out, what he believes to be fake news, just a soft campaign, really, against tariffs, which is what Donald Trump believes would be the fair way forward for Canada and the United States to work together. Now, yes, this was just one province, but Donald Trump sees this as, being from Canada. I mean, rein in your provinces, Canada. That is the message he is setting. But look. Again, at the end of the day, the two countries need to work together for many reasons: national security, narcotics trafficking, human trafficking, immigration issues, and of course, very, very robust trade partners. And again, with Mexico, Canada, the United States, the trio. And I do believe we will go back to that. This is Donald Trump setting the stage. You can call it a temper tantrum. You can call it good governance. You can call it either one. But I do believe we're going to fall somewhere in the middle with a fair trade for both sides.
Mm-hmm. And both leaders, that being Mark Carney and Trump, were in Malaysia over the weekend at the ASEAN conference, but did not cross paths, apparently. But President Trump has since moved on to Japan and will be making a stop in China, where a trade deal between the U.S. and China is drawing closer. Lisa, what is significant about this besides the fact that these are the world's two biggest economies?
Yeah, I think everyone is waiting very closely, watching their stock portfolios for the announcement that a trade will come through. Look, when Donald Trump announces even the slightest thing about tariffs on China, increasing tariffs on China, you see the volatility of the markets really responding to any type of rhetoric around China. Obviously, being a major global player at this point, China knows that. The only issue is that China is not a normal player. You can't make the assumptions you make about a European nation or even about Canada about China. They know the leverage that they have. They obviously are very weary about the talks about sanctions, about any sort of tech restrictions. Obviously, that's somewhere where they thrive and have done very well. Excelling at copycat manufacturing and engineering and all of that. So we shall see what these talks will be about. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some kind of resolution to this, obviously behooving both sides, the Chinese probably more, but I also wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese become spiteful and really kick the can down the road and we see a bit more of a lapse before we see something happen here. But either way, I think all eyes on China, all eyes on this talk.
Trump also saying that he's open to meeting with North Korean dictator Kim Jong Un during his time in South Korea during this Asian trip of his. So Trump was quoted as saying, in terms of North Korea, they are sort of a nuclear power. So what caused Trump to say he's open to meeting with Kim Jong Un?
Yeah, so he was asked if there will be any sort of meeting, and as we know, in his first term, they kind of drew close, and it was interesting to watch Kim Jong Un, this rogue dictator, and Donald Trump become pen pals, and they had some visits. Nothing came of it, but it was historic and nonetheless. And will he draw upon that? Quasi relationship once again? Will something happen? So he said there's sort of a nuclear power, meaning no one talks about North Korea. They're marginalized, but we have to remember they are kind of a nuclear power. And when he says that, it's tongue in cheek to say it's an important conversation to be had. If we can draw North Korea, again, a nuclear power, a rogue nuclear power, closer to having normal relations with the West.
And speaking of Asia, while over the South China Sea on Sunday, 2 U.S. Navy aircraft from the USS Nimitz crashed during separate routine operations. So one was a Seahawk helicopter, the other an F-18 Super Hornet fighter jet. So all 5 crew members were rescued and are in stable condition. And it looks like the Navy is investigating both incidents. So Lisa, what happened here during these routine operations?
Unbelievable. I mean, what are the chances of having 2 accidental crashes like that? Again, as you said, all 5 crew members were rescued, which is quite important. But I saw this breaking news come in, and I was like, how could that be two separate incidences? But again, thank God they were able to rescue everyone. But I think we will wait to see what the investigations show as to how this happened, what kind of what kind of glitch we see in technology or in maneuvering, or if these were even related, or if it was just coincidental.
Okay, so let's look now to South America. So Argentina's libertarian president won 41.5% of the vote in midterm elections, giving his government a decisive mandate to bring continued economic change to the country. So what can you tell us about this, Lisa?
Yeah, this is an interesting. Whenever we see one of these elections, we talk about this kind of pendulum swing throughout the world to the right. This is a libertarian leader, but very much aligned with Donald Trump, and really a kind of a fresh voice in South America. He obviously is very much fiscally conservative, and I think that that's very important because he kind of is waiting to make all of these changes to Argentina. It'll be, I think, something that will be a sort of a copycat effect if you can kind of get other nations in the region to look at the prosperity that he can bring to the continent and to bring to Argentina. And I think that'll be a great, refreshing change. He now has control of Congress there, so I think he'll have more opportunity and leverage to make these changes and make real legislative change that will be long lasting. You have to understand in South America, I mean, every nation has its own thing, but you're looking at Venezuela, you're looking at, Bolivia, you're looking at Peru, you're looking at Colombia, countries that have really been plagued by either dictatorship or the narcotics, war on narcotics, and really overrun by cartels and mafia style groups, insurgencies. You also have Iran's regime with a robust Hezbollah presence in those countries. So I think Argentina will be this bastion of perhaps capitalism and robust economic growth. And hopefully, I think other nations will fall in line if they see that that's what can be. I think the people of the region will wake up to a lot more opportunity.
Yeah, speaking of robust economic growth, so Trump has offered Argentina $40 billion aid package, which includes a $20 billion currency swap and $20 billion debt investment facility. Can you shed some light on this offer?
Yeah, this is exactly in line with having this kind of leader who is very much sees eye to eye with Donald Trump and his policies. And he's saying, let's give them the money while they need it. If they can make these changes happen, why not really double down on that and provide assistance? If we give aid anyway, why are we giving it when nations are in the dumps and not be able to get themselves out, and not willing to work together with the United States into the interests of Western civilization, but work against it, right? And here you have a nation that will do that with a leader who's at the helm and that understands a lot of the values that Donald Trump brings to the United States and what the United States really stands for in our foundation. And I think that is the reason to double down and to give them the assistance up front. And I think they will thrive under this the aid package as well as this leader.
All right. And Lisa, what is it that Argentina is promising in return for that large offer?
Well, there's a personal relationship. There is an ideological alignment with Donald Trump, that's for sure. But it's always great to have allies close to the United States in all continents, and that's our ally in South America. I know there's some opposition to this, to use that money here in the United States instead of giving it out. There's always opposition to foreign aid, but Donald Trump is a big proponent of helping our friends and really. Giving a harder time to our adversaries, not just writing checks without any leverage.
Okay. This one's kind of interesting, and we spoke about this last week after it happened. So, a week after a crazy jewel heist at the Louvre Museum in Paris, that's the most famous museum in the world, two 30-year-old men, male suspects, both known to police, were arrested. So what other details can you share with us? I know we went into it last week. It's almost like a movie where they used a crane, and it was during open hours where there were other people in the museum. It was crazy.
So, yeah, one of the suspects was at the airport trying to hop on a flight to Algeria. That's what we know, that's how the arrest happened. But moving backwards, all week we heard that perhaps the suspects were working together as an inside job with employees from the museum. That's how they had access. That's how they had all the information. I know you and I talked about this last week, that this was the smartest and dumbest heist we've ever seen, because did they think they're really going to get away with it? Did they think they weren't going to be found? I mean, I don't know what kind of gloves they use. I don't know what kind of equipment they use, but there was DNA left at the scene. We know that the French authorities brought in a third-party investigation group to help them. And eventually, as you said, the warrants were out for their arrest, and shortly thereafter they were arrested. So really brazen. I mean, my question was, I mean, how, who are they selling this to? They have to find very specific people in the underground market that would feel very cool and happy to have these jewels, but it's not like something you can use or display or wear. But
yeah, because it's the French crown jewels, right?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, it's interesting, but I do think they can make a really interesting movie out of this, because, as you said, it does read like a movie plot.
Oh yeah,
So
it's like an Ocean's
we're glad they're
movie.
in custody. I mean, it was a crazy, crazy move, but
Do
they did
do
get away with it.
yeah, do we know anything about the suspects, who they are, where they're from?
We do know that they were getting on a flight to Algeria, so perhaps they were of Algerian descent. But as you said, the authorities said that they were known to authorities. So I'm wondering if these are people with some sort of record or history, or if they, were just coming in and out to commit the crime, or if they were living in France. I think as the days go on, we'll hear more and more about this, and perhaps we'll hear more about it in a movie.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that Hollywood gets the rights to that for sure. It'd be very interesting. Lisa Daftari with the Foreign Desk, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.